Welcome to tonight's webinar on EstimatorXpress 2019. This training webinar will be going through some of the new features released for version, say 7.7.9, as you may see it being updated to. The version, as we're going to see it now, comes out with the new reworked Word documents as they are exported, the stage payments and invoicing as well. Okay, so we're going to get started with EstimatorXpress. So nice, clean, fresh install of Estimator here. Hopefully everyone can see this nice and clear. Again, any issues, please say. I've already set the software up so it's already had a price book download, so I have everything ready for me in my price book here. It's all good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop to my jobs and I'm going to import a job that I made earlier. There we go, my Peter Blue job. As that is importing. So this is one I put together earlier on, so we can get straight into the meat of the webinar without having lots of prelim work to go through. So I've already got a two-story extension here. Most of the work is done, so that's brick and block, pan-tile roof. We've got a door in downstairs, a patio door with a knock through into the main house, a new single door going into the upstairs, what is now a bedroom. And for this, I'm going to give you a quick tour of what's been done. Let's take you down to the rooms, so you can see the items that have been done in here. Let's edit the bedroom there. So the job's been populated with various items ready for us to work with. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my build program. I'm not going to use any unused build phases because this will be pre-set up for me now. So I have my build program set out as required. Now, not everyone uses their build program, but it is an incredibly useful tool. It works in conjunction with Project Expert if you're using that to really fine-tune things, but even just adjusting it yourself to what your expectations for the job will be, using the information from the reports as to how long a phase may take based upon the hours of the labour being used, you can build an effective build program. Now, the importance of this going ahead is that this information will be what's used for our stage payments. And from there, we can then invoice correctly as well. So the first thing I'm going to do now is go into my outputs. And I'm going to go into my stage payments. Let that load up there. There we go. So those of you that have used the software already for editing the written documents will be familiar with the layout of the expanding tree on the left hand side. So we have our stage payments, and below that we have a cash flow report, which we can look at in a moment. And we have our settings for our stage payments down here on the right hand side. You can always hide these by clicking on the settings there if you need a bit more screen space. I'll expand that again for now. So I'm going to start off over on the furthest leftmost setting here, which is our heading, which basically says stage payment schedule, then reference number and name. We can swap that for client address, client name. So I can delete this out, and I can insert client name there, apply those changes, and that comes through. As a note, that is also applicable in our written documents as well. Whenever you see this keyword to insert, the same applies. So you can choose what's presented there without having to export, edit outside of the software. As per standard, I can change the fonts and the header footer as well. So I can insert an image, company address, date created. I could insert on the top left, date created. So we have a reference there for when the document's been done. And then moving across to our terms. This is where we can start, I'll say, having fun with it, but this is where the serious work begins. Now, a question that came up a lot previously in EstimatorXpress 2018 was about taking a deposit. I know one of my colleagues, Matt, constantly badgered us up in support about this. You know, for those of you that wanted this, thank him, because he's the one that really pushed for this to be added in, and we made sure it is in for the 2019 version. One of the great things about having all the coding done for this now in-house is that we can add features as requested. The importance of this here is if I click Take Deposit, I can set the date the deposit is going to be taken. So I can say this could come out on August 20th. Actually, it's a job start date September, so let's do 26th. There we go. And we got a 5% deposit initially. Now we can always go back and change that, but it's important that we've got something to start working with. Okay. Now we have two options for our billing frequency. So bill at start and or end dates of build phase, or bill at regular intervals. While the bill at start and or end dates of building phase is active, I can use the build phases charging methodology to select how that is applied. So this means I can charge for commencement to be done at the same time as oversight and slabbing. So that is oversight and slabbing, my foundations as oversight and slabbing, and my footings same time as oversight and slabbing. If I save this and then apply, what's left there now on my preview is my deposit coming out on the 26th, my oversight and slabbing materials coming out a little bit earlier because those are items that may have a longer lead time to order and then pay for due to their nature, so they're coming out a little bit beforehand, and then everything else gets charged on the 16th of October. Okay, so we can group those items together or not. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to set these as NA, remove that grouping. Save that there, apply, and it's broken down there again. Now you'll see as well that some of these items are grouped together. Now this is, if I go back to the methodology again, is where this start date and end date comes into play. You'll see there that the material will be charged at the start date. So customer gets billed for the materials, so they're not coming out of your pocket. What you will be financing for that build phase, unless you've got money from your deposit to cover this already, is the labour, plant, subcontract and sundry. You can charge up front for everything on that phase, or you can charge for everything at the end of the phase if you're so inclined. But this means that as you go through your list of items here, you will have your labour for site setup being charged at the same time as materials for foundations. Okay. it's quite a easy page to use, this one. Just there can be quite a lot of clicking if you do want to change it from those defaults, but generally the sensible item there it is already done for you, making sure the material value is covered beforehand. If you do have any questions about this, don't forget to drop them into the questions box and we'll cover them for you. So I'm going to save that and it closes. The other option we have here is bill at regular intervals. So I can set my intervals as days or months. I can set my interim billing period as 30 days, or I'm going to bring this down to 14 days. I'm going to set my billing period start date to be, well, I'll set the 2nd there for now. I'll apply that and see how that looks. I can always go to my build program and see that job start date 30th of September. Okay, just a quick refresh to remind myself and take advantage of the fact that you can scoot around the software quite easily now without much detriment. Nice and quick. So my billing start date can start, like I say, 30th September when the job starts. And I'll set my deposit to be 2 weeks beforehand. There we go. So I'm going to apply that now. See how that comes out for us. So now I have my deposit coming in on the 16th September, and then charging every 14 days, again based on my build program. So this might not be a front loading to the beginning of the phase, it's just going to be done as a percentage of the phase, as it were, or when the phase is. So many people prefer to use the beginning and end of build phases, but if you do want a nice, clean, consistent schedule, you can set as regular intervals. I do actually prefer this. Now, before I move on to the inflation, retentions, and defects liability, I'm going to go to the cash flow report. In here, I can see that I've got payments coming in, I've got payments coming out. In, out, in, out. I thought I was going to say it. But now I can see that I've got my cost and cost cumulative, my revenue cumulative, and my cash flow. So I can see here on the right hand column as I go down, there's the odd occasional minus number. That's not the greatest. That means I'm going to be funding this job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my deposit to 10%. I'm going to apply this and see what this does to my cash flow. Well, there we go. I've practically halved the amount of funding this job. Still don't want that to happen. So let's bang that deposit up to 15%. There we go. That first deficit is gone, and I've got 1,300 coming out, well, say, on the 20th of November. Put that deposit up to 20%. Let's look at 20th of November, and I'm still in the black there now. Only 31 quid 55, but I'm no longer funding the job. Could be that, say, well, that is factoring all your profits. It's also factoring in your overheads, and it's also factoring all the wastage factors in the background. So you are not going to be, say, losing out there. You've still got cash coming in to cover you, but it also means that you're no longer funding that job. So you can use your stage payment calculator not just to, say, present the customer with a billing schedule, but you can also use it to plan out your job, plan out your payments, so that you can see if this is going to be worthwhile, if you need to maybe shuffle the phases around a little bit to help organize where the cash flow is coming in, if you're going to be doing it by bill at start and end of build phases. But it gives you a lot of control over your cash flow. I'm going to come over here now. I'm going to hit the, actually go back to the stage payments main screen there. There we go. And I'm going to now use sales price including inflation. So if I'm going to be doing a particularly long job, I can apply that. And see, that affects me. There we go. I also have interim bill retention 5% and final bill retention 5% and defects liability 6 months. So it could be that I may not have any interim bill retention, but I might have a full bill retention of 10% agreed with the customer. Apply that. And I can come to my cash flow. And I can see, especially with the difference with the interim bill retention and the sales price including inflation, if I look at the 20th of November again, I am a grand up from where I was before. Okay, I'll put the interim bill down to 5%. I said that's back to 5%. Apply that and see where that takes me. Okay, there we go. So we can see that by having that interim billing retention, if a customer is demanding that one, it could be detrimental for you. If you're okay with it, fine. If you're not fine with it, you can say, okay, we'll have a higher final bill retention. At least that way then, halfway through the job, you're a little bit more protected. As far as tools in the software to help you run your business, this is an incredibly useful one. Part of me wants to say, I hope to hear plenty of you calling in with questions or your manual questions about this. At the same time, seeing this now, it's quite straightforward enough. I just want to hear you say, yes, it's brilliant. It saved me lots of money in the long run. Fantastic. So before I move on, is there any questions anyone has about the stage payments? While anyone's thinking of any questions for me there, I will point out there's also, you can set charge VAT on this, percentage or input only, and what percentage that's going to be, if it's going to be different from the default 20%. Okay, just going to give you all a moment to fire any questions in before I move on. Okay, so everyone seems pretty happy with that there, so we shall move on to the invoicing. Actually, no, before I do, I will, okay, I can save these settings to the library. That's how I like them. There we go, so that's saved to the software. I can export cash flow report to Excel. Save that. There we go. So this point is just being in a Word document. You want something there for either yourself or your accountants to work with. Good stuff. And also don't forget, you can export that as a PDF if you're going to send that over to your customers so they can't fill in the numbers. Word document, or if you feel so inclined, as a web page. The things you can do these days. Okay, so yeah, quick thing down the exporting, but yeah, saving it to an Excel spreadsheet. As it's a given function, it's much needed. Definitely need that. So moving on to invoicing, and this is where you can now take advantage of some of those figures you've produced within the stage payments. So while you don't have to use the stage payments for this to be effective, there is some wonderful things that you can do that if you're basing it on those. First things first, how to set up your invoicing. If you are going to be using this, you want to make sure that your numbers are correct. There is a button to manage your templates. So your templates are these just basically saying what items need to be on your invoice and what ones are optional. So say yes. It'll open up Word for me. Bring that across. And this is our template that we have in the software. You can edit your templates, add your own. So these can be fully customizable. Same again for your credit notes. Once we're doing that, we're going to set up our invoice number format and also our credit number format. So prefix, I can say 00, 1. Next number in line is going to be 1 because it's going to be the first invoice. But as you go through, your invoices will build up and then that next number in line will change constantly so that your next invoice is always going to be correct as far as your invoicing system goes, and there will be account linked to the correct job. Suffix I can say on this is 999. There we go. So our preview, actually we can't have suffix is the year, so 2019. Now we have prefix, next number, suffix sorted. For this, we're going to go 111. Bear one moment. Okay, yeah. Apologies about that. It was just my son asking for more time on the computer. Okay, so company registration number. We're just going to drop that in there. Company registration address. Payment terms. So this can be something like, say, all invoices to be paid within 14 days. There we go. And apply changes. So that's now set up for us. This is actually I'm going to set the prefix there as 1 now as well, so apply that. So this is important. Make sure we've got our payment terms in there so the customer knows how long they've got to pay it. I do believe by government standards, payments should be done within 30 days at most, unless you are one of the large developers like Kia or Carillion, where your average is 60 days. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an invoice. Now I can do this from the stage payment info, or I can do this based on percentages or from valuations and such there. So I'm going to use the stage payment first. I can use estimated invoice date, or I'm going to set an invoice date manually. I can select my deposit to be invoiced. Create, and I can preview this. There we go. So payment terms or invoices to be paid within 14 days. I didn't make a note on this one. If I'm not happy with the invoice template that can be used, I can change or update the template within here. I'm going to go back to my invoices. You'll see now that it's listed. As I continue to create invoices, they will be further listed down here. I can also use the software to note if this has been paid or not. I can also export these again as PDF, Word documents for our customer to view. I can go ahead and create another invoice. I can see which phases have already been invoiced. So it's doing it by the singular date, so I can't invoice across multiple phases unless they're grouped together by our stage payments as we've selected here. There we go. Go to create invoice again, this time from valuation. And this allows me to say 50% of foundations. I can include inflation on there or not. Create that. There we go. So I can see that I have a description there. Foundations 50%. So that's paid. See all these are paid. I can go ahead then, create another invoice, pour foundations. No invoice. Get a nice big red cross if you get the wrong figure in there. So there we go. Okay, so you can continue going through invoicing how you choose. I'm going to do again now for custom. So this could be not linked to one of the other items that's already estimated in here. This could be for an additional piece of work that's already been signed off with a change of works form. So we say £300. VAT on that one there. Description. Apologies for the loud keyboard. This is what happens when you've got a mechanical keyboard. There we go. Create that one there. Add it in. VAT included. XVAT. Preview this. So nice and straightforward to use. Allows us to keep track of everything within this job. And so the software again grows from being just your estimates, but also your job management. And nothing there to create for credit notes. So if you have any questions about the invoicing, please drop them into the questions box. Okay. Everyone seems fairly happy with the questions there. So now we've done this section, we're going to be moving on to our written documents there. So quote for main estimate. Okay, there. So the quote for main estimate has had a bit of a rework. It's not an obvious rework, it's just more, say, friendly tweaks to the job. Okay, now this is a clean, fresh install of Estimator. Before a clean, fresh install of Estimator, we would have had each build phase starting on a separate page. Now, we can, by default, have them all grouped together. Oh, questions just come in about the invoicing. Can you add a company logo? Now, because the invoice is created in a special way, basically by a template that it adds to, you can create your own template with your own company logo, however your formatting is. Because we are not going to dictate to you, unless you use our template, how your invoices should look. That's why when we go to the, if I pop back to the invoicing a second. If I go to my show settings, if I go to my manage templates, and I go to edit, this is why it gives me the keywords are required, so details, contact details, invoice date, invoice number. Keywords are optional, order total, link VAT and such. Okay, if you agree to that, it opens up in Word and you can edit however you like. Okay, so you can add your company logo, add pictures of unicorns, whatever you want. It's your template. It's actually one of the few times that you may want to use Word, but if you don't use Word, you should be able to just create your template in another Word editor and then just point the software at that. Okay? So, to answer your question, yes, but it's just not a built-in function. It's the templates are yours to edit. Right. Back to quote from main estimate. So, as I was going before, the software now doesn't separate all the phases from each other. They're all nicely grouped together. And one of the other big changes to this is that as you go to do your exporting, you're no longer kind of locked in. Okay, so I'm just going to change this to say, please refer to attached documents. There we go, apply that. And I'm going to go to, say, look at the overall job there, export, and export this as a Word document. Nope, I've opened up in WordPad. That's fine. So what I do is just quickly open up webinar job there. I also open in WordPad. There we go. Who would have thought that a Microsoft update would have changed the default opening program of something? Who would have thunk it? There we go. Quite nicely, the webinar software pulls that automatically for me while I dashed through and sorted out your word. Had a word with it. So now, unlike the previous 2019 export function, this is now something you can muck around with a lot more. In fact, you can take the whole summary, cut that, bring that to that page there, scroll right down, paste that in there, and insert page break. There we go. Tidy it up a little bit. So someone was asking today about the summary being on the pages beforehand. Now, because the Word documents are much more friendly, it can just be cut and pasted to the end if you want. As far as I'm aware, the ordering of these items hasn't been updated to be changed within the software, but at least now there is the ability to move them around if you so wish. One feature that has appeared in 2019 from the beginning, and I don't know if everyone knows about this one yet, is the quote type by location. Now, users of the software previously would have been familiar with build phase and estimating calculator, or by workbook, which was the way before you could produce say an estimate by room by room by room by, say, renovating workbook, renaming it. But now we can do location just flat out, which is perfect if you're using the rooms function as exampled here. So my bedroom, laminate flooring, internal lighting, electrical sockets, and my dining room. So this is another function that many people requested, to be able to say quote by location. And now as long as you've got your location set up within the estimate, Bob's your uncle. You can now do it. So that there is the main changes in the latest update. So the wonderful grand return of stage payments and invoicing, and the marvelously useful update to the Word export, courtesy of Graham. If you don't have any questions, please drop them into the questions box. I'm just going to have a quick 5-minute break to have a drink, and we'll get cracking with a FAQ session. Okay, back in a moment. Okay. Couple more minutes, and we can get on with the FAQ. Now, I was promised by some customers today, some of you guys, that you had questions for me this evening. So I'm counting on you. Don't let me down. Suppose this is part of the video that we should have some music playing over the top of it. Maybe I should edit that in afterwards. So, okay, a bit like the questions. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just, questions come through about adding logos, so I'm just finding a nice picture I can throw in there. Okay, so question about say logos, headers and footers and stuff. So the same tools generally apply throughout the software. So once you kind of sussed it in one part of the software, the methodology for doing it in others, so adding it into your stage payments as a logo and such there, apply the same. Applying it to your cash flow reports, so you can have a go at editing those templates in a moment, so we can see how that all works together for you. So I'm in my cover page at the moment now for my written documents, quote from an estimate, and I can go to the include logo tick box. So as before, you'll have a browse where you can find a logo. And for my logo, I'm going to have a picture of a phone. Apply those changes and see how that looks. There we go. It's a bit tiny, it's a bit small at the top there. It's not ideal. Okay. So what I can do is I can increase the size of this. I can say let's take that to 70. And I'm going to leave the horizontal alignment as center. Vertical alignment, if I change it to middle, we'll bang that in the wrong place, unless you're doing a nice light logo in the background. So I'm going to put that back to the top, and I'm going to use padding, vertical padding. I'm going to say 50. Apply that. Takes us there. 40. Takes us up a little bit. That's a bit better. If I change that to 35, bonza, my logo is now in a nice appropriate location. Now I've done this, I can save those logo settings to the library. There we go. Now, important thing to remember, and this is kind of a thing that applies generally with the estimates themselves as well, is if you've used the logo and it's coming from, in this case, my desktop, a folder on my desktop, if I then move that folder, the software can't see the logo because the logo is no longer where it was. Okay? It's kind of removed off to another location. So you'd have to point the software back at it. So any logos you want to use or anything like that, make sure they're saved to a location that is just going to be fairly consistent. My pictures, company logos, something like that. This is also something that applies massively for your estimates. I'm going to save this estimate. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. So there we go, save. Okay, so there it is. I'm going to go to my jobs. I can see the information about the job there. I'm going to cover the job details in a moment so I can see the file location. I don't have to scroll too far. And it currently says see users, pretty short for my email address. Desktop webinar job, job 1, Peter Blue. Okay, job I made earlier. Hardy ha. Now, if I was to go to my desktop, I'm going to come in here. I am going to go into my webinar job. I'm going to go new folder. I could say completed jobs and go, right, okay, I'm being nice and tidy now. I'm going to put my estimate in that completed job. Okay, there it is, all nicely tidied away, ready for use next time. I'm going to go to my dashboard. I'm going to click on that job. It's going to say, cannot find job 1, Peter Blue. Is it possible it was moved, renamed, or deleted? In this case, it was moved. The software is looking in the location where it was, and it has disappeared. Like a small puppy that you've just performed a magic trick in front of, it stares wide-eyed in astonishment as it can't see what was once there. We can solve this by going back to our jobs. Get rid of that one. Go import job, into completed job, and open it up again. So now we're pointing the software to the new location. We have revealed the coin from behind the puppy's here, and it is wide-eyed in astonishment again, as if everything is back to normal. Also works for children. So that there is a commonly say accidental thing that happens because it's a new thing in the software. Just getting used to it is one of the important things. Okay, it's done this way now so that you can put your job in a single location that someone else can then open up. So it's gone to OneDrive, Google Drive, whichever, and then that other person can open it up, save it. You can then go carry on working on it. It's no more shareable than it was before when it was saved to a hard code location. Also important now that because you can save it to your documents, your desktop, whichever. If something were to happen to your machine, you've either got it saved directly to your cloud location, cloud, terrible name for it, generally someone else's computer, as it were, or somewhere on your machine, but somewhere on your machine that a technician at somewhere at a computer shop, let's say the Geek Squad, if they were to try and recover information off your hard drive, would instinctively try and recover it from, e.g., your user profile, documents, desktop, downloads, that stuff. Before, they needed explicit instructions to look for estimates in the program data path, and weren't always followed. Backup options, people didn't always use them, forgot to set them up. All sorts. Okay? So now that you can choose where to save your estimate, you've got more control over it and its safety and security. But it also means at the same time, if you do decide to start playing hide the job with it, you need to sell the software wherever it is. Okay. Any other questions? Give you a minute to think another one for me. So everyone may have noticed, generally when I'm opening up Windows and such, is all dark. I prefer the dark mode. Saves your eyes at this time of the evening. Don't know if anyone else has a preference for that, but it's a useful thing to know that you can now change the software theme from the settings up there. Okay, give you another minute to give questions. A little bit there, give me ample time to sneeze as well. So, another question there about the inflation, the profits and overheads and how they've changed in the software now. So, on your dashboard, you'll see that the blue cog on the left, on the navigation tree, is called library, whereas in an estimate it's called job settings. They share some of the same functions, but the library is the master list. Same as the old My Settings in 18. you will have in your estimates, and also out here, your overhead, profit, and inflation. Now, the overhead, profit, inflation has been split out to 50% each way for a total markup of 30%. And in recent updates, the subcontractors had their overhead of 15% popped back on as well. So everything's nice 30% across the board. For those of you who haven't seen this, this basically eliminates the whole section of training about having to work out what your net profit is on a job, as we now refer to as profit as the last 15% there, and the overhead is cut out and set aside for your company runnings. So depending on the size of your business, you can factor in that on each job without damaging, as it were, the true figures of what your profit for the job is. On that note as well, saying about profit and also the inflation rate. So the inflation rate is now based off the time of job creation. So previously it had been based off for materials, the last time that material had its price edited, say for labour, plant subcontract. So some of those might not have been changed in a long while, so they would have been giving slightly inflated figures. Now it's based off the job creation, it's much more accurate. So if you've got your delay before inflating cost as 12 weeks, my inflation is going to be much less than it was before now. It's only going to start kicking in after that first 12 weeks. So as I'm creating this job on the 14th, so I've got week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8, week 9, week 10, week 11, week 12. So everything in November onwards, there we go. That's why we started getting the inflation towards the end of our job. Okay, so coming from today. You can change this to be a slightly increased amount of time, or you can decrease the inflation rate themselves. But currently, at the rate materials going up and such, it's a good idea to have them in there. So, it's straight. It is what it is. The profit on here is, so as a, let's say you had 10 grand. Okay, after your overheads and profit are applied, you have 13 grand. From that, 1.5 grand is your overhead, 1.5 grand is your profit. It's not the case of, say, factoring up by a certain percentage to get a remaining percentage. It just does exactly the percentage as you put in. So for a good example, if we have a little look in our job, go to our outputs, data reports, and let's look at okay, I've paused and unpaused. There we go. Right. So quick pops of job settings, so we'll brief from that again. So yeah, 15%, 15%, 30%. It's not a case of say doing the different percentages to work out to the 25%. It just works out as straight off the bat, as it were. Now I'm going to go to my outputs, data reports, and I got a look at this. So let's go for profit forecast. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that clear now. Sorry for it paused for a moment. Hopefully that shouldn't happen again. So I've got my payment due, I've got my cumulative total profit. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a little fill about some of these items on the list in the field list here. So if I go to total overhead, put that in there first. So there we go, so we've got overhead and profit split out. Next thing, my total cost including profit and overhead. Let's put that there. And let's just also fit that a second. There we go. There we go. Right. Raise your hand in chat if you've used, or if you've not used the field list to filter information. Okay, so using these should give you 100 of, so using your, say you want to say the margin of 30%, so divide 7 times 10 equals 3 amps. Generally, I don't go too much into the maths of the profit markup. It just basically just goes what the percentages are. So if I was to let's create something very, very simple for to run through together. Go back to my dashboard. Let's not save this. Let's create a new job. Let's go for quote old school style. Job name. If I say quick quote import, it gives me none. Alright, we'll get it in there. It takes a bit longer if you've got the ribbon on the top to load up. It has to load up, basically a quick link to each and every workbook. Even if you are rocking 16 threads. There we go. Yeah, is this bit that never loaded it before? I just had to build that on the fly for me. There we go. Usually the second time loading, much quicker. So I'm gonna go in and add a subcontract quotation for bricklaying. 10 grand. Okay. Outputs. If I go to my, actually it's a quick build program. If I remove unused, right, okay, that's fine. Outputs, data reports. profit forecast. Okay, so it's working this out, as I said before, 10 grand straight in there at the 1500. The software's not being overly complicated in the background. If you do feel you want to use the percentages differently to work out what your markup is there, you can do. But just using this as a case example, it's not going to be doing anything particularly fancy. As I say, I've got the total profit listed. If I go to my field list, now the data area down here on the bottom right is this area here. So I can just drop that in and even drop in total markup. There you go, so 1500, 3 grand, the 30%. So the software is keeping it very straightforward in how it's applying those numbers. So if you do need to do the numbers differently, then you've got the ability to adjust those in the background to do that for you. You can, if you want to. If I go to job settings, load it all into one. If you want to do your working outs afterwards. There you go. So if you want to be doing your maths differently, so how your accountant's going to be doing it, you can just use a single line within the overhead and markups to do so. Okay. Actually, while we're here, so any other questions? What I'm going to do, go back to my dashboard. I'm not going to save this job. That's the important thing. If you say no to saving, it's gone. Okay. Remember to save. Always be saving. If you can do a different style of the job and make some changes, do a save as. So you've got a copy of each before and after. Right, so let's go to this one. We're going to go to outputs again, data reports, and let's look at materials used. Okay, because not enough people use the data reports. Updated version 2019. Just say if your support's in place, you should have had a link to the download and a new license key because it runs alongside 2018. Sorry, hit the microphone. Because it runs alongside 18, it has a brand new license code, so you can register both side by side. Everyone should have had that email, multiples of, in fact. But if you still haven't had it back, just email. Say support@hpexcel.co.uk. There you go. That email address. Just email that saying, "Can I have 2019? Pretty please." And you went, okay. Like say on that email as well, say, "Please can I have my license code?" And we'll send that out to you. Okay. So yeah, just let us know, and we'll get it out to you. We want everyone to be using the new version. Of course, there's going to be a time period of people using the older version as they can finish jobs on that, complete jobs. Might have to revisit it because customers come back after an eternity of pondering, going and ah. But eventually, we should all be running 2019 and experiencing the glorious future. Leave behind the dark days, the dark Excel days. So I say that as I'm looking at a copy of 2007, which, as far as Excel goes, was absolutely smashing. which is why it's still on my machine. It's a wonderful thing. New versions of Office are nice, but they just got a bit cumbersome. Alright, so yeah, mucking about in data reports. The same principle you might have seen if you've done any of the materials filtering is that if you click in one of these headers, it changes it by alphabetical order. Yeah. As you hover over these, you'll also see that there's a pin appear. By clicking on that pin, you get a menu. I can untick Show All, and I can just say External Works 1 and 2. And I can just look at my external works. This makes reports much easier to view. So I could just say I want to look at masonry shell. Well, I want to untick all. There we go. Footings, foundations, masonry shell, oversight and slabbing. So you can break down. I can take out resource description. I can left click, drag it back into the hidden fields, or I can just pop it up there into that kind of like holding area. This holding area allows the filters in here to be applied to the job below. As you see, type of resources up here, and it has a pin showing. That means it's applying a filter. In this case, it's doing the material one. Show all again, there we go. The order these filters apply make a big difference if you move them around. It's fast to put, say, the resource, let's go type. So that'll be under resource, this little box here for resource. Some filters in there for us. So resource type, I'll drag that in, pop that in there. So I can see structural openings, there's my bricks, carcass and timber, what if fit that. I take over. The longer the report, the more the auto fit takes. Sometimes you might be off just moving a single box on its own. Now that's nice and straightforward. If I was to change that resource type to be after build phase, I get a completely different story. So having those items in an order that makes sense is quite important. You see me put stuff into the data area. If you want to tidy it up, you can even take stuff out of a data area and have different things showing. Okay, if you want to restore a report back to the way it was, you just hit Restore Report at the top. And it puts it back to the way it was. Now, top tip in here, don't hit Delete Report. Don't hit Delete, okay? Because it just removes the report out of the job. What you may want to do, especially if you're going to be messing around with the report and creating something a bit more custom, is copying it. Give it a new name, remark, comment, and such there. So. Gets added to the bottom of your list. You can do what you want with it then. And then you can just save it back to your library. Just put resource description in there. Resource type. In the beginning. There we go. Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice report. I like that. And you can export that out. Now, one thing that crops up a lot as well is people exporting these out as Excel sheets. close that down. So I'll open up another one in a moment. When you export it out as an Excel sheet, you will be getting these kind of additional filters down the side. Okay, not always what people want to see. They want it a little bit more simplified, maybe as it was before. Okay, so we've got building sign bulk bag. The information is a lot more broken down. The suggested thing is to export it as a CSV. Many people go, what's a CSV? Basically, a CSV is an Excel sheet that is a bit more universal. It's accepted by accounting software and such. So if you've got a program that can open up Excel sheets, you can open up a CSV. If you present the information in a report in a certain fashion, it can be even read by certain accounting softwares. You just got to know the information you need to send out. So this is much more friendly. There we go. I'll close that. Right, so is there anything in particular anyone wants to see in the software, or you see in a report that I can put together for you? So if you've got any questions in the next say couple of minutes, we can call the webinar there. We're going for an hour 20. A surprisingly short webinar. Not many questions this time. Normally you can go on for a little while doing stuff. But if you guys want to get a shift on, I shall let you. I'm not gonna hold you up. But the main thing is that we've gone through the content. What's new in the update? While you guys have a think, I'm gonna mess around with one of these reports and see if I can make it look how I might want to use something. So build phase. That's our cable. Build phase. Now, build phase, you notice it lists it alphabetical. I'll do order by date. Order by date. Date required. That's the one we want. Date required in there. Turn on prep for masonry shell. Just take out build phase. A bit superfluous at this time. There we go. Resource purchase unit. Resource cost. Let's put in here. What can we put in the totals? Total estimated quantity. Just drop that in there. So, total estimated quantity of that item is 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0. what I'll do there is I'll just click hide items with 0 quantity and 0 cost. And there we go. That's taken out all those items I didn't cost for. It's leaving me with the items I did. Nice and straightforward. You can, if you hover over the, say, column border, bring it all in. But it just does its best to fit all the text in, so. It's a bit of a using noggin on that one to see what fits best, but you can bring them all a bit closer together. Okay. It's one of the, say, give and takes. In some ways, you know, the niceties about the old Excel pivot tables is that it would just cut off the text, whereas now it fits it all in. It's just due to the way the engine works. But we can get the same result. At the end of the day, you can fling it out to a CSV. The main thing is in here, you know, you can set it out in here as how you want it to look. So if you was to do it as a PDF, let that generate the PDF. It'll auto fit it when it hits out the PDF anyway. So generally, if you want a lot of control over it, export it as a CSV, and you'll be able to move the columns around to your heart's desire. Okay, so if everyone else is happy to call it there, I shall call it. Thank you for attending tonight's webinar on, say, EstimatorXpress 2019, new features, and our Q&A session at the end there. It's been enjoyable. Hopefully I've given you the information you wanted. And say, if you have, say, any more thoughts on this, or you have any questions that you didn't get a chance to ask, or you want to, say, be more direct with, you know, feel free to drop us an email, support@hbxl.co.uk. Send that to everyone as a reply. Yeah, hopefully we'll maybe not hopefully speak to you soon, because that means something's wrong. But have a good evening and good night.